Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to Tournament Takes. Today I'm going to break down the Monday Night Football slate between the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings. I hope you guys had an amazing Sunday. I actually did very well. I'm going to have a lineup review video that's going to be coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Please like, subscribe, and share if you guys find this information useful. So let's break it down. Let's get down into the last game of Week 10. Let's get into the Monday Night slate and let me show you guys who I'm targeting and who I think can be some great plays on this slate today. So if we get into it, we look at the positions. We see Dalvin Cook, captain, 20,400. Now, this is an extremely high price and maybe deservedly so. You know, Dalvin Cook, he's had two monster back-to-back performances against Green Bay and against Detroit. Now, while Dalvin Cook is probably the best, if not one of the two best running backs in the league, along with Christian McCaffrey, I think this is a spot that's going to be tougher for him to kind of get it going. We saw Detroit does give up a lot of yards to the running back. We saw him rush for 206 yards against them. He had a little bit in the passing game as well, 2 catches for 46 yards. We saw them, shred Green Bay for 163 yards with 3 touchdowns, and he had a significant day passing in the passing game as well. However, Chicago is a much tougher defense. Right now, Chicago is giving up about 4.08 yards per carry. They're 9th in the power success rate, and they're 12th in stuff rate at 19.2%. It means they're stuffing the quarterback behind the line of scrimmage, the running back behind the line of scrimmage, 19.2% of the time. Now, the Vikings are the best offensive line in the league right now. They're averaging 5.17 yards per carry. Their power success rate is not great. They're 26th in power success rate. However, they're second in open field yards at 1.22 yards, and they're second in stuff rate, while they are getting sacked at a 7.9%, 25th in the league. What this essentially means is that they are a really good rushing team. Inside the 10-yard line, they're rushing about 70% of the time. So that gives Dalvin Cook a lot of touchdown equity. He's definitely someone that I do want in my lineups tonight. Because this entire offense is kind of a run-first offense, I think a majority of the work is going to be coming from Dalvin Cook. And this Chicago, while it is a tough defense, they are giving up, 4 yards carry, 4.08 yards carry to the running backs. So if we, anticipate Dalvin Cook to get, say 20 to 25 touches, as we've seen in weeks past, he could get 100 yards and a TD fairly easily. Maybe they throw a long bomb to Justin Jefferson or Adam Thielen. He could definitely get into the end zone. Now, they did lose Irv Smith, so he's not on the slate. That may open up some more targets for someone like Kyle Rudolph. But in general, I think this is just going to be a spot where they're going to run the ball a little bit more. Second up, we got Allen Robinson. Now, Allen Robinson has been dealing with a little bit of an issue. This could be a game where we could see them kind of use Robinson out there as a decoy. Minnesota is giving up the third most points to the quarterback and to the wide receiver position. Allen Robinson, I'm assuming tonight, will be very highly owned. However, Minnesota is really, really bad against the deep pass, specifically down the middle of the field and down the deep right of the field. So, Allen Robinson typically lines up on the left side of the field. While he does move around quite a bit, I feel like this is not a spot where I necessarily want him in my lineups because he's going to be highly owned, because, it is Minnesota. The game, general consensus is going to tell us that, people are going to target, the best receivers against Arizona. While I think it's more the deep threat receivers that I want. I'm kind of more on Darnell Mooney. We see that he's getting the long touchdowns, 22-yarder, 50-yarder, 19-yarder. He has a 33-yarder against Indy in there. He's more of their deep threat against this Vikings team. And Nick Foles is throwing the deep ball, probably more than anyone else aside from Drew Lock and Tom Brady. While Nick Foles does throw a lot of interceptions, we also have to look at their matchups. So Chicago's played some tough matchups, recently, some really tough offensive lines. So Tennessee, actually, he did very well, and they don't have much of a pass rush at all. They're dead last in pass rush. So we see against Tennessee, he had a really, really good game. He didn't really have any turnovers, no fumble, no interceptions. that's kind of a game that I'm expecting out of out of Nick Foles tonight. I think that he can put up a very, very good game. Against the Saints, we see that he still had 2 touchdowns. He did have a pick in that game. Not a great game for him, but he's still throwing the ball extremely, at a really high pace. So he's someone I want to kind of get into my lineups. We see against the Ram, he threw 2 interceptions. Again, a strong pass rush. Against Carolina, he did have 1 touchdown, 1 interception. It's a fairly decent game. Against Tampa Bay, again, another interception. I think that if people are targeting the Vikings defense, it's not a bad play. It could work out in the sense that they could get an interception returned for a touchdown. But a more likely scenario, I feel like, is Nick Foles is gonna have a better game than he's had all season, pretty much, against this Viking secondary. So for me, given how expensive Dalvin Cook is and the script kind of, I don't really think I'm leaning on captaining Dalvin Cook, or with the injury concern, I don't really even think I'm captaining Allen Robinson. For me, Kirk Cousins is kind of out, even though he's just not throwing the ball enough to where I feel like he's going to be a captain. Against Detroit, even in a good matchup, he did have 3 touchdowns, a very efficient 220 yards. I don't think it's going to be that efficient against this tough Chicago defense. Chicago has been very, very good against the pass, so I think it might be a lot tougher game for Kirk Cousins in this spot. So right now, I'm kind of leaning on captaining Nick Foles, just because I feel like he has that upside, that multi-touchdown upside. We also have to note that on Chicago, at the running back position, David Montgomery is out, which was taking away some of the rushing touchdown equity. I don't think that Cordero Patterson is on the field enough. I mean, he could, get some of those rushes out of the backfield. They could put him at the running back spot, or they could put him out as a receiver. It's just kind of more of a gamble. Another cheap play at the running back position is Lamar Miller. This is going to be his first game of the season. I think we remember when he was on Miami a few years ago, he had a couple good games. But overall, I mean, this is kind of a sneaky play. If you really think that Lamar Miller is going to kind of get the work, the matchup against Minnesota is really, really good for him. They're giving up 4.83 yards per carry, and they're not stuffing the running back at all, like 28th in the league against the stuff. So if you are taking a shot on the Chicago Bears rushing game, I think Lamar Miller is kind of a must play. I mean, if you really, really think that he gets to work at $200, he's a really, really cheap option. Personally, I don't think I'm going to be going there. I think I want more of the Chicago passing game. I feel like, Chicago's a team that's passing the ball, at a pretty high rate as it is. So I kind of want to take the passing side of that, and then take on the other side, instead of kind of figuring out, now that Irv Smith is out, trying to figuring out if it's going to be Chad Beebe going to be getting the targets, or if it's going to be, Justin Jefferson, or if it's going to be Adam Thielen. I'd rather just stick with what I know I think is going to kind of play out, and take Dalvin Cook in the flex. And again, it's in the flex because he is expensive at captain. It kind of kills the rest of your lineup if you jam him in there. So it's not somewhere where I want to captain, because I feel like he doesn't have that upside. I mean, it's crazy to say, because Dalvin Cook has that 45-point upside on any given slate. He can do this to anybody. But I just think in this spot against Chicago, it's going to be much less likely. That's why I'm leading the passing game with Nick Foles. Against Minnesota, like I said, they're giving up a bunch down the deep left and the deep middle and the deep right. Darnell Mooney is a good, like I mentioned, it's a good play. He's someone that I'm going to want in my lineups. He's playing about 80% of the snaps. So it's someone that I think he's on the field enough with Allen Robinson hurt. And because of where Allen Robinson is lining up on the field, I think they're going to lean more on Mooney. We also saw, I played Jimmy Graham a few weeks ago where he kind of had a dud against his old team, New Orleans. He did get targeted, towards the end of the game, which kind of brought up that 7 targets. But last week against Tennessee, he caught all 6 of his targets for 24, and a 24-yard touchdown. So I think Jimmy Graham does provide that upside. And again, Minnesota is not great on the pass rush, so it should give Nick Foles more time to kind of throw the ball. And if Allen Robinson's not catching these short passes, I think it's going to be kind of Jimmy Graham. I also like Anthony Miller in this spot. He's on the field about the same amount of time as Jimmy Graham, so it could be one or the other. I kind of want to just take both because I'm kind of fading Allen Robinson. I feel like if you know if it's Anthony Miller catching the short passes and then you know Jimmy Graham catching the touchdown passes, I feel like it's gonna work out a lot better for me. It also could kind of hurt you because only one you know one of them down the middle of the field is gonna be getting the targets. It's either gonna be Miller or it's gonna be Jimmy Graham. But Jimmy Graham is getting 30% of the end zone targets. You know, so it's really high opportunity for Jimmy Graham. For me, I also don't mind captaining Jimmy Graham. I feel like it's a good play. With given the amount of Nick Foles, the amount that he throws, it could also be a Mooney or a Miller. That's why I'm kind of leaning Foles in this lineup as captain over Jimmy Graham. But I think if you want to do Jimmy Graham, it's completely viable as well. Dalvin Cook, again, I'll reiterate, he's just too expensive at that 20,000 tag against this defense. I mean, if he was playing Dallas, absolutely. If he was 15,000, he's going to be in the captain spot because he's just going to shred that defense. In this spot, I really don't want to go with Dalvin Cook. So in the captain. So I am going to plug in Anthony Miller here. It leaves me 3,100 left. You can kind of decide who you want to play at this point. You could fiddle around with the captain. You could say, okay, if I don't want to play Dalvin Cook, maybe if they're playing from behind, maybe they're not rushing it as much. Maybe they're throwing to Thielen or they're throwing to Jefferson. So you can kind of tinker with that a little bit. But for me, I'm leaning on Minnesota passing game, Minnesota rushing game, and the Chicago passing game. Now, there is a little bit of wind in this game, about 10 to 12 miles an hour. I don't think that should affect this game very much. I could be wrong. The kickers are also in a good spot. I do like Chicago's kickers. If their drives tend to stall out, CAIRO SANTOS can get there, 12, 13, 14 points. We've seen him do it, quite a few times this season. But like I said, I think that in this game they don't have their running back. They don't have either Tariq Cohen or David Montgomery. I want the short passes to Jimmy Graham. I want the short passes to potentially Anthony Miller and Darnell Mooney for the deep shots. You could go Allen Robinson. This might be a huge mistake for me fading Allen Robinson in this spot. He's just expensive. He's a little banged up, which kind of will depress his ownership, I think. So it is a good contrarian play. And, I think that if we're thinking that he's going to end up as chalk, I don't think that's going to be the case at all. I think people are going to see this questionable tag right here and kind of decide, okay, well, do I really want to take Allen Robinson, even though the matchup is great? For me personally, just because of where they're receiving the targets on the field, it could be Allen Robinson in the slot catching all these passes and then, kind of screws over, Jimmy Graham and Anthony Miller. But I think they're going to take a wait-and-see approach. They do have a bye coming up this next week. So it may be Allen Robinson may be on the field even less than we anticipate him to be. So it's something to keep in mind. It's not a big thing, but for me, I'm weighing it fairly heavily. That's kind of why I'm not on Allen Robinson. I also just feel like the matchups for the deep guys like Mooney, Miller, who can go get a 40, 50-yard bomb are better. And then I want the red zone threats with Jimmy Graham. Now, you could play Cordarrelle Patterson if you think that he's going to get the rushing work. With 3,000 left, it's up to you what you really want to do. Like I said, you could take a shot on the Vikings defense. It's crazy to think that stacking against Nick Foles, but Vikings defense have been forcing sacks. They are forcing a good amount of turnovers in the red zone, and Nick Foles is turning it over in the red zone quite a bit. So if you feel like, okay, maybe the Vikings get an interception in the end zone, or maybe they sack Nick Foles, they're not getting sacked. Chicago's not getting sacked at a very high rate. I think right now Chicago is getting sacked at 17th. So they're 17th, they're 6.6%, but they're not, Minnesota's not really bringing the pressure like some of the other teams that we've seen. Minnesota is also about 17th, 6.4% in sack rate, and Chicago is 17th and 6.6% sack. So it's not a horrible position to play a Minnesota Vikings defense. You have some correlation with playing Dalvin Cook. This could be a game where I think that Minnesota could get out to an early lead by just rushing Dalvin Cook or throwing a big pass. Maybe Dalvin Cook gets a 1 or 2 yard touchdown, and then Chicago kind of has to throw to kind of keep up in the game. it could go the other way. I really don't see it that way. I really think that Minnesota is going to come out here and try to just pound the ball, even even against this Chicago O-line. They can be beat. Like I said, Chicago's defense is giving up about 4 yards per carry, but this is the best offensive line right now in football. Dalvin Cook, arguably the best running back in football so far this year, with the exclusion of McCaffrey. McCaffrey's been kind of injured. He's probably the best running back rushing right now. Maybe Aaron Jones in that mix, but you could take the Vikings, or if you kind of think that, okay, maybe they lean on the run game heavily. We saw 12 carries from Alexander Mattison for 69 yards. So if Dalvin Cook maybe doesn't get there, maybe they're rushing the ball too much. He rushed 22 times, and we saw 12 carries from Alexander Mattison. At 2,000, Alexander Mattison stacked with Dalvin Cook could also be an amazing play. You're just locking up the entire backfield and touchdowns, which is something that I might look to do. I'm only going to roll out one lineup. This is not a great slate that I think I must play, or where I have like such a big edge, but this is kind of what I might look to do. Again, what I could possibly do is potentially get Jimmy Graham at captain. Or you know what? I might even take a Mooney at captain, because I feel like he has that big touchdown upside, and he has some short pass upside. So he's on the field enough to where I feel comfortable doing that. Jimmy Graham in the flex, along with Nick Foles in the flex. You have about 2,700 left. You have 4,700 if you plug in Anthony Miller. You can pick the kickers from Chicago. If you think the drive kind of stalls out, maybe you play Dan Bailey. They are playing at Chicago. I'm not sure actually exactly how much Chicago is giving up in the red zone. Let me just take a look at that. Yeah, so like I was saying, I'm not really sure how much Chicago is giving up in the red zone. Whoops. Let's see if I can find it. So Chicago away in the red zone is only giving up, at home they're giving up 28.57% of touchdowns. So I kind of like Dan Bailey in this situation where, if they're not giving up these touchdowns in the red zone, and if Dalvin Cook's not getting into the end zone, he's getting the rushing yards, you maybe see Dan Bailey kick some field goals, So in the last 3 games, they're only giving up 55.6%. Minnesota on the road is giving up touchdowns at a 61.54% rate, which is, it's not great either. So both the kickers in this game are viable. However, if I'm leaning, I kind of want to lean Dan Bailey as opposed to Santos, just because I feel like if Minnesota is ahead, they're going to be kicking the ball when they're getting down in the red zone. They're not going to be going for it on 4th down. It's a more conservative type of offense, whereas Chicago, if they get behind, they're just going for it every single time. So hope you guys like what you see. Hope this gives you guys a little bit of insight on where I'm at. My number one kind of play, if you ask me to pick one person at captain, it would be Nick Foles first. Number 2 would be Mooney. Number 3 would be Jimmy Graham. So if I'm playing 3 lineups, I would want to play all 3 of them, and then mix and match and see if I can, if I can upgrade from Miller and see if I can get maybe a Patterson in there or something, You do want to leave a little bit of salary so you can get different at certain spots. But overall, this is the kind of build I'm looking. Just remember, if you are paying down at the captain spot, you want to use that salary. The whole point of paying down or taking kind of like a punt or a lower owned captain is so that you can fit more studs in your lineups. Usually you do this when you think the game is going to be a little higher scoring, or whether you think that team is going to be a little higher scoring. So I think just given the amount of volume that Nick Foles is going to be throwing, I want maybe a cheaper captain, or, you got to kind of see what it gets you. If it can get me a little bit more, I'm okay doing that. But this is kind of the build I'm at. This is kind of the guys that I'm on. My number 1 play, Nick Foles. Number 2, probably Mooney. Number 3, Jimmy Graham. And then number 4, I like Dalvin Cook. I'll have a mixture of those 4 mixed and matched somewhere. like I said, I may be only rolling one lineup out. I may roll 4 $15 lineups out in the Millie Maker. But other than that, I think that's kind of where I'm at. So good luck tonight, man. Hope you guys all do really, really well. And then tomorrow I'll have an update on the video for this past Sunday. Kind of look back, kind of see how our lineups did, and hopefully give you guys some tips and tricks going to